Today's video is sponsored by Brilliant, but more on that a little later on. In the previous episode, Secretary Emily Timmons released a request for proposal to develop at least 500 housing units in a state park. In return, the developer would get this valuable land for free. Russ Kowalski and Ben Begay, the developers of Marquette Island, teamed up with the college and were awarded the rights to develop the land. And they got building right away, adding this neighborhood, which has met all the housing requirements associated with the RFP. But there is still a ton of work to do, including building the state park and constructing higher end and higher margin housing for the university professors. So in today's episode, we'll focus on building a basic state park along with 3 neighborhoods using vanilla assets in 3 unique ways that'll give each neighborhood a distinct vibe. And stick around to the end where we make fixes in these areas based on your feedback. And you know who we haven't heard from in a while? Chuckles. And if you miss Chuckles, hit the like button. And if you think we should stay far, far away, hit the like button for that too, and let me know how you feel in the comments. Or drop an emoji that reminds you of Chuckles for the sake of engagement. And without any further ado, let's jump right in. Hello, welcome back to City Planner Plays, where we are building the town of Nicolet in Nicolet Bay, and we've got a good one today. We're going to be building a ton, so let's jump into today's plan. We're going to be building in a fairly large area today, everything from up here all the way down to south of this lake. So we'll begin by laying out our roads. We'll lay out a neighborhood right here, another one right here, and another one right here. After that, we'll switch gears and focus on our state park. This is going to be fairly large, but fairly basic. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. That's not the point, and that's not what the developers are trying to do either. Then we'll add some city services to this area, including a couple of schools and some parks. So let's begin with our roadway layout. For our roadway layout, I've really got 2 goals today. The first is to respect the topography. This isn't the most challenging environment, but there are some terrain challenges, and we do not want to encroach upon the hillsides too much. The second is to keep it simple. I think it can be really tempting to go nuts and try to plan really elaborate roadway layouts when in most cases that is not a goal of developers. So we are going to do those 2 things. And I'm going to begin right about here, the mirror side of the lake. This will give us an opportunity to fix up this path as well. And to begin, I want to basically cut in between this hill and our new state park. And I'm going to come in on this major arterial at a 90, and then we'll follow our terrain to make our connections. And then I want to look at the rest of the terrain to see other places where we can maybe navigate around here. So this is a key area right here. We want to follow the coast. We're going to want to come down right here in between this hill and this bigger hill. And then this is probably as good as we can do right here. We are going to pre-grade this first. And then I shifted this end of the road closer to this hillside. And the idea is that I couldn't develop anything if I put this road in the middle of these 2 hills. But if I shifted it to one side, I could at least develop on one side of the road, and that gets this road built. Otherwise, it wouldn't get built. Developers pay for roads, and it's always important to be mindful of that. And then here, I've redone this road a little bit. So number 1, we want to respect the terrain, but number 2, I know that we're going to have a few things over here that are going to need some space. So I'm thinking about our roadway layout in relation to the things that we're going to have over here. And one's going to be a state park entrance, and the others will be a hotel. So knowing that that's something that we want to place, and if that were something that the developer were thinking of up front, the roadway network might conform to those sorts of uses. And now our goal will be maximizing our saleable lots. And we don't want to develop along this arterial. So what we'll do instead is mirror this road right here. And I was going to draw this in, and it's fairly straight, but I don't know that it's perfect. So we do have the network multi-tool. Let's take advantage. We'll take that about 60 meters back. I'm going to tab this over to the other side. I know that we're going to be developing something over here. I don't know that it's exactly this, but it will be something similar. Now I'm backing this out just a little ways because I know already that I want to come in at a 90. There's going to be a school right here, and I'd want this to be as square as possible to maximize our view distances, because otherwise you could end up with some situations where it's difficult to see around corners. I'll do the exact same thing right here. And then here's the one spot where there is a bit of terrain disrespect. The idea is that this is going to be a park here. So park here, high school here. We're likely going to modify this area significantly so we can fit sports facilities in. Then we'll have a little commercial district right here, and we'll pepper in residential properties wherever we can. Now I want to change our focus over to this area over here. So I'm going to go into the freeform tool, and we'll have only our angle on. We'll turn on our road guidelines as we need them. So I'm going to stop right here because I know that we're going to need another way out from this area. Otherwise, we're going to cul-de-sac it. So I'm going to add another entry point, and that will really dictate some of our design. So I'll come in right about here, and then we'll meander around this hill. And then I'm going to cut against the terrain here so that we can make our way up. This is more or less what I'm thinking. We've obviously got to make some cul-de-sac bulbs and things of that nature, but for the most part, we're in a pretty good place here. So I'm going to create the cul-de-sac bulbs by going into Node Controller, Control N, and then we'll select the ends of these. And I think that going about 175% will be pretty good. And then it looks pretty crazy, but we can see when it goes from red to green. If we go a little bit beyond that, we can add a node here, and then we'll get a nice bulb. So we'll do that on all of these. And then I want to turn off markings here as well. It would be very strange to see a crosswalk on the end of this cul-de-sac bulb, at least up here in the mountains. Just to double check our work, I am going to go into set slope mode just to see how crazy our slopes are. This is longer of a cul-de-sac bulb than I would like to have. Truthfully, all of this right here, all of this spaghetti is a cul-de-sac, but I think we can get away with it a little bit here because of our proximity to some of our aerial services that we have. We have our fire close by. And I think I'll be satisfied with 8%. I'm always trying to get better at not making everything flat. It's so tempting to do so. That said, we do need to make sure that we can build in some of these areas. And like this cul-de-sac right here, we wouldn't be able to without shifting things over just a little bit. So we'll give ourselves just a little bit of room here. And we're going to not zone all of this. We're going to need to be really careful and thoughtful about where we are zoning. So I think we're pretty good there. Let's move on to our third and final neighborhood. And this one is going to be a lakeside neighborhood. And before we add our roads, we should actually probably adjust the heights. I want part of this to have water access. So I'm going to take our brush size up and our strength down. And then I want to get as close to the water as I can. Right mouse click. I'm going to go about 2 meters up. Now let's make some connections into here. The reason I dropped this down is we are going to have some homes that have water access. This will be the most exclusive part of the entire neighborhood, and that's how we will provide it. We're actually going to make some docks and have some boats in there and make it feel like a place that has some life. So let's add a road back here, and this road is not going to be the primary road over here. It's really an access road for these properties. And then we'll have our primary road come up right about here. And this one will end up being a highway, so we'll convert it afterwards. So we are going to make space for a school. So we'll have a school right about here. So we'll connect right here. Editor Phil, I am going to completely change this a little bit later on in the episode, so we'll skip past this part since you'll see me do it again. And then we have one more connection to make over here as well. And then while we're thinking of this, let's fix our slopes. We can have a fairly steep slope coming in. That's not a big deal. I think that in this neighborhood, they like anything that can discourage traffic, including those crazy slopes. Now, the reason why we went with a highway is we're going to junction this right over here and add another connection across the river. That was something I saw a lot in the comments of the previous episode is we need more connections across this river. And you know what? I totally agree. I am going to switch over and make this connection using a normal road. The highways, for whatever reason, will bend and contort. And I don't want that to happen, so we'll just upgrade this after the fact. And we've already got our first person using it. I'm not sure what they see over here. That's so thrilling, but there's something. And I'm going to signalize this because this is 2 high-speed roads. The last thing I want to do is kind of clean things up here and add some cul-de-sac bulbs on this end, and then we'll fix our pedestrian connection into this area as well. There we go. And then we have this connection, and I've been really giving this a lot of thought, and I think I want to go with a normal pedestrian path and not this university path. And you know, the main reason I want to do this is I just think that they blend a little bit better with the roads and the paths that we have on the other side, but we will need to grade this area out. So to do that, we'll come with a fairly narrow brush. I'm going to take the cul-de-sac height and pull that out a little ways. And then over here, I'll grab this height and extend it out even further. And then I think that this end over here is actually higher than this end. So I'll right mouse click up here and then left over here and just pull this close to it. then while I'm thinking of it, we are going to just add a fence along here as well. So I'll use the parallel mode. After selecting this fence, we'll take this maybe 10 meters back. And this should completely parallel this pedestrian path now. And yeah, that's pretty good. This also lets us know where we maybe need to pull back our terrain heights a bit more. And then the very last thing we need to do is check our sand. And you can see that there is some sand that is encroaching upon here. Very simple. We'll just take our brush size way down and then just move the sand. There we go. There are our 3 neighborhood layouts, and truthfully, I think that these are 3 neighborhoods that students and professors alike could enjoy. But what if you're like Philip, not a university student or a professor, but still interested in learning? There's a fun and easy way to be a lifelong learner. Today's video sponsor, Brilliant. Brilliant is the best way to learn complex topics like math, data science, and computer science interactively wherever you are. And the best part is that Brilliant customizes its lessons to fit your needs and lets you explore at your own pace, even providing helpful hints and step-by-step instructions if you get stuck. Recently, creating all of the Monday Deep Dive videos has made me realize that I could use a refresher on how to effectively present visual data. Brilliant has a data analysis course that focuses on that very topic. But you don't have to become a data visualization wizard. You can try any of the thousands of lessons that Brilliant has to offer free for 30 days. Just visit brilliant.org/cityplannerplays or click on the link below, and the first 200 of you will get 20% off an annual subscription to Brilliant. And a huge thank you to Brilliant for sponsoring today's video. Next, we'll build our state park. And the reason why we're building this is I reasonably don't think that this could get approved without the state park getting built next. And that's because this is the only lever that the government has to ensure that their development actually gets built, is that they say, we're not going to approve any future phases until you build the park. Otherwise, what incentive does the developer have to actually complete the park after they get all of their approvals? There's no incentive for them. So that's generally what you'll see happen. They can work on part of their development, they can get some profit, and then they're going to be required to build this infrastructure that they promised early on. So I just want to make sure that the park area is nice and evenly painted across here. And like I said, this is going to be a very basic park. So just an entryway in, an entryway out, a couple of amenities, maybe an outlook. And if anything else is wanted here, that's going to be on the city. So I'm going to put the entry point over here, and then we'll have an exit over here. The entry, we'll try to find a nice, gentle location to come in. This looks like it's probably about as good as we're going to get. And I went 7 meters in either direction, so I'd have this flat spot up here. And we'll make this a nature reserve, and we'll go for a small main gate over here. I'm going to right off the bat throw in a side gate because I know that we want that over here. I'll place that right at the end of this cul-de-sac. And my main goal here is going to be to provide access up the side of the mountain and down the other side near some flat spots as well, so we can have a campground or something of that nature. And then maybe some overlooks, like right here seems like it would be an excellent spot to check out the university, Marquette Island, this whole community right here. So we want to make sure that we're providing those sorts of opportunities as well. So we'll come right here. And again, this is not a road, so we can come in a little bit steeper, a little bit hotter than we normally do. But we would want to think about accessibility as well and try to make this as accessible to as many people as possible. And doing that means we aren't going super extreme on the slopes, if at all possible, and switchbacking if we need to. Now, as much as I want to get over there, that's not our main route. Our main route is actually coming up the hill. So I'm going to meander over this way, and then we'll come up here. Now, I'm going to cut in here. We'll add a secondary path just for the scenic overlook. And then I'm going to switch gears and come over here. And this one's going to be considerably more challenging. We're basically going up the side of a hill. And obviously we're going to need to do some work to make this plausible. I'm going to begin by a fairly flat segment, and then we'll immediately start going up the cliffside. So here's where you get some calves of steel. And we'll fix some of this within the network multi-tool. So I'm not going to get overly crazy about it. Although, look at this, we're basically going up a rock side. And truthfully, if we turn the contours off, we can see what a pretty rock side it is. So I think I'll try not to destroy it. So we'll turn this into a bridge. And that did okay. It still did some terrain things, but I think we can live with a bit of that. And then we will come up the backside here. Maybe just loop around and then find a nice gentle place to come up. Now, the nice thing about using these paths, these are terrain conforming. So they will allow us to use the network multi-tool to actually come up with some better slopes. So we don't have to do all the grading up front. If we were using the normal gravel paths, we'd be in a really rough spot right about now. And there we go. That is about good enough for our main path there. Again, similar to what we were doing before, let's give ourselves some scenic overlooks. We can also put on some fire watchtowers. We're going to definitely want that. And then we'll provide some opportunities to reach campsites. Now we'll pop into our slope terrain tool, and I'm afraid to look at some of these. Honestly, 6.4 is pretty darn good. This one got a little off on me. So yeah, that was what I was afraid of. That is really unfortunate. So we are going to just end up taking out a bunch of that slope. I think that we are going to have to live with that. Otherwise, it would just be way too extreme. All of that said, this doesn't exactly look like it's necessary as a bridge now, but I kind of like the sides. It feels like it's a little bit safer to have those railings on. Let me know how you feel about it in the comments. And I'm guessing that this side is considerably better. Yeah, that's not bad at all. So I think we're good here. Now let's add some of our park amenities. And it's areas like this that we need to focus on, making sure that we're actually going to the right place. And it looks like we went a bit low here. This is going to be good enough. And we'll just have some viewing decks. Let's see what that view would actually be like here. Okay, well, maybe not a tree right in front of it, but that's pretty good right there. Now we've got an excellent view. This would be something that people would really want to check out. So maybe a couple more of these, and then we'll also add in a couple of camping sites. And there we go. Nothing all that elaborate, just 2 tent camping sites right here and then an observation deck over here. We will get this one fixed up. It's clearly not in a great spot. And interestingly, for this one, I was really hoping I wouldn't have to cut down any trees if I placed it here, and it doesn't seem to have done the trick. So we'll have to still cut down a couple of trees. And then for our camping sites, I actually used Anarchy to place these. And for the most part, I think it's done an okay job, though I'm going to use Anarchy again to raise this up, or rather move it to raise this up. There, and we've gentled out those slopes a little bit. I really like the way that this is turning out. It's very simple, but it is effective. I think it would still be a community gem, even with as basic as it is. And that is our state park. There's not much to it. And in fact, if we take a look in here, in terms of entertainment, we're not going to get much past level 2, but that's completely fine. That is what this place is supposed to be. Let's adjust our policies a little bit. Let's advertise this park, and we'll recycle garbage, which you can do within your nature reserve. And I want to make sure that nobody's lighting off fireworks here. And on the topic of fire, let's add in 1 fire watchtower, and we'll add that right about here. Then the very last thing we need to do is rename this, and I have an excellent name. We'll name this Carlberg Park, which is going to be named after a renowned local naturalist and a patron. So there we go, Carlberg Park. Now in this area, we curve the road down here because I wanted to add a hotel. I think this is going to be an excellent spot for it eventually. Right now, it's going to be a bit strange. But we're going to go with this mountain lodge, and we'll put it right at the base here. And, giving some thought to this, this is a hotel that I've struggled to place, partially because it requires access to offices and shopping. So it says this is a mountain lodge that belongs up in the mountains. It's what the picture shows you, but that's not actually what it wants. So we're going to place it here, and I think it's going to end up working out really well. This might be the best placement of this that I've ever had. So we'll put that right here. Then we'll modify the terrain just a little bit. And then we need to place some water pipes underneath the road right where they belong so that we don't have a whole bunch of problems. And, I've been looking at this, and I think we might modify this just a little bit. So I will only put water pipes in these areas. There's our water. Let's also add some power. And I think temporarily we're going to be really cheap about it. We'll throw in one of these transformers. I know that we're going to jump these by the end of the episode, so I don't want to get overly crazy about this. Either way, it looks like a piece of the building that you might see anyway, so we'll just place it right near the side. And then there's one thing I noticed about this asset that I want to resolve, and that's right here. We've got this path. So I'm going to go into the network multi-tool, and we will go into the unlock segment mode, and I'm going to unlock these and then just delete them. And then I'm wondering how far I need to pull this building back using move it to make that little piece disappear right about there. And there we go, fully functional. I'm wondering, yeah, we've got 40 out of 40 of our natural location popularity rating, but we have to really max out the rest of it. So this is parks, some shopping, and some business location proximity. So I think that we can absolutely do it here. And with our park done, let's build some city services. So for our city services, I want to begin with schools, and that's because with our previous neighborhood, we didn't build any, thinking that this is going to be an area where there's primarily college-age students, and they wouldn't have children. And over here, we've got our professors, and they will likely have children, so we'll want to provide educational opportunities for them. So we're going to build a high school right about here and an elementary school right here, though I've been looking at this area, and I really don't like the area that we've created here, so we'll likely adjust this a bit. But starting out with the high school, we'll add one of these institutes of creative arts. I think that they would expect to have some sort of really nice high school, so we'll add that right about here. And then we have a number of sports complexes very close by, but I do think that there would be an expectation that there are some over here. So we'll add the Suburban American Football Field. This one doesn't have any sorts of stands, so it'd be great for practice and not really much of anything else. And we'll build a community baseball field. And now is where we start to disrespect the topography a bit, or rather make the topography respect us. So I want to make these assets look good. So I'm going to Control H these into place. And then I'm going to add nodes to the end of this so that our terrain drops after these facilities so it continues to look nice. So to do that, you can either go into node controller and just add one, or like I'll do right here, I'll just add a node within the network multi-tool. And then we'll slope from that new node that we've created. And this is actually going to cause me to relocate the high school, because what I'm seeing is that we actually don't have space for the high school right here if we want the terrain heights to be even a little bit reasonable. We're looking at a significant slope here, 15%. So we could either relocate the high school over here and then pull this slope out a bit, which I think is totally rational, or we could have done some more significant work over here trying to adjust the heights. But this is probably the path of least resistance. And I decided to swap the location of the football and baseball fields. The main reason for that is that the baseball field's large and it was conflicting with the high school here. Now we're going to need to add some parking for the high school. Now let's focus on this elementary school, and I'm going to completely blow this up. So I'm going to back this out. And I think the way that we'll handle this is to indeed make some more of the high value lots. It wouldn't make sense to cut those off. I mean, they would clearly try to get as many of those lots as they could. And I'll run a road up here, and then we'll cut back this way. Now let's use our curved road tool to make a nice connection right here. And this will even give us a better connection down to this neighborhood down here. And that's because we can slope over a longer distance then. And now we have a 5.8% grade. That is much better. The other opportunity that this opens up for us is to potentially add another little neighborhood over here. Nothing huge, but I'm thinking something like that. Yeah, that is a much better solution. That feels much more natural to me as well. So here we're going to place a community school. So I'll add a small road here. This is also going to be a bus turnaround. And I want to add a node here. This node's going to do two things for us. First of all, I want to squeeze this. So rather than stretching it like we do on our cul-de-sac bulbs, I'm going to squeeze this to 66%. Do the exact same thing here. We've got to pay attention to the color. It's blue that we want to stretch down. And now it looks like a really narrow road, like one that you might see, one of the 1U roads you might see if you have the Vanilla++ project. And this should still work for us. And truthfully, this already looks like a cul-de-sac where maybe you could see some sort of turnaround, but I'm going to increase this. And maybe we'll go 125 here. That to me looks pretty darn good. Now we'll add a community school right here. And I'm going to center this. And now we can add some of the amenities that we might expect to see here. I don't want to add all that much, but I'll add this playground here. And what I just did is I pulled it back from the road so it doesn't connect up to the road. It's still getting the access it needs, but it doesn't look like it's connected. And then we'll add a path right back to the front of the school. Then once again, let's see if we can get rid of some of these pieces that we don't want. So I'll just unlock them. And after trying a couple of different things, it's clear that that's not going to be possible to unlock and delete those. But it's not a big deal. We can just go into our surface tool and just delete some of the edges that we don't want. Good enough for me. And then we'll add some fences to ensure that the kids stay in here. And I'm just gonna go fairly simple on this. We'll use a park fence. I think that the chain link fences look a little bit more natural, but this is a higher end school too. So maybe this being a private school or something of that nature, you'd expect to see nicer fences. I think that's pretty good. Obviously, lots of complaints about power, but we'll get to that in just a moment. And some of this will jump after we place the rest of our amenities. We're going to add in some parks. And I think this is a good spot for a park because of this hill. I don't really know what else you do with this area, short of just cutting into the hill and eliminating it. And we don't want to do that. We want to respect the topography. So we'll grab one of these large parks with trees. And what I like about these is they are terrain conforming. And if we use move it, we can pull these back a little ways, maybe center it on that hill, and then add some path connections out. And some of these other parks are also terrain conforming. So I'm going to add a dog park in the center. This is going to be very reminiscent of the student side. And then one of the core differences is that over here, I'm going to add some community gardens. So these are the tiny parks that we recently got with the hotels and retreats update. And the community gardens are all variation 1. I'm just going to variation 1 all the way through here. And these do have an impact on your terrain, so we will flatten things out. And then that will look a ton better there. Just wonderful. Now this will do double duty for us because we are worried about this hotel. Look at that. We've maxed out our sightseeing location. Perfect. And then there are really 2 more things that I'm very concerned about in this area, and it's all under our healthcare. We've got our child and our elder care. So for Child Health Center, I think we're going to place that right here. This isn't the most obvious location for it, but the reason why I think that this is a good one is if you are a university professor, you could bike right down here, drop your kid off, and then bike all the way to campus. And then for our elder care, I want these to be basically like senior condos. So I hate to do this, but I think I'm going to place them right about here. I wanted it to be closer to here. We're going to cut into the hillside just a little bit, and we'll give the seniors a nice view. And that never happened. It looks like it's always been like that to me. And I'm going back and forth on our other coverages. So I'm just going to look, how are we looking with our health coverage? And it looks like we're not doing great over here. For fire coverage, I can't skimp there. And you know what? Truthfully, I think we've just got to add all of these. So we'll add them kind of close to the high school. There we go. And I probably gave this more thought than it needed, but here's the idea. So we have all of our services right here. It's close to basically everything and everyone. So we've got a post office here, health, police, fire, and then I added parking in the middle here, and this could do double duty. If you were coming to the community garden and you had to drive here for whatever reason, let's say you had to bring your buckets or soil, you could park right here and then walk across to the community garden. Alternatively, it also gives access to this football field, to the hospital, really acts as a nice area. It's very centralized in that way, so feeling very good about that. And with all of that done, it's time to move on to our zoning and building placement. So as I alluded to in the intro, we've got 3 unique neighborhoods, and there will be 3 different ways that we build these neighborhoods. So to begin, I think we've got to name these neighborhoods so I can delineate the boundaries. So here are our 3 unique neighborhoods. We've got Nicolet Terrace. This is going to be an easy area to just zone in. So we'll just zone it in and let whatever comes in this area come in. Next to that, we've got Pine Ridge. We're going to zone this area, but we're also going to use the advanced building level control to put some constraints around what zones in here. And then over here, Long Lake, we're going to be plopping every single building. So that's kind of 3 different unique ways to approach placing buildings. So starting here in Nicolet Terrace, we are going to begin with some commercial and office. And that might seem like a strange place to begin, but first of all, we do have commercial demand, pretty significant commercial demand if we're being honest. And we have a need for some right next to this building. So I'm going to change our zoning the way that it's coming up. And I want to eliminate it on this road so we get nice blocks right here. Do the same thing right here, but only on half of the road. I'm also going to add a node right here and remove zoning from this segment. So once again, we get the 4x4 buildings. And now this looks like it's done a pretty good job here. I'm wondering if this area fills in, if we'll finally see this area, or this completely level up. But from a sightseeing standpoint, we're good. We're halfway there with our shopping. Once this comes in, I think we'll be there with our office, and maybe I'll just add a couple more commercial over here. And that's kind of it for commercial in this area. With that in mind, let's fill the rest in with residential. I'm going to leave this open here. This will be a place where maybe we add a key wall and have the ability to maybe walk and have a park space here. We'll turn on our contours and try not to encroach upon this hillside too much. And I'm adding 1 unit of separation in between these buildings so that they don't have lots of crazy terraforming issues. This is one easy way to resolve most of those. Just give some space in between the buildings. I now have most of the zoning in place. The one thing I feel a little bit uncomfortable with is this cul-de-sac bulb right here. So obviously if we had the ability to place a building here, which we don't in this neighborhood, zoning only, we would be able to just quickly add a building there, but we'll just get rid of this. We won't worry too much about that. And then I'm going to add a node here and remove this one. And now we'll just have a nice curve there. Easy as pie. I think that does the same thing. So now I'm going to use the parallel road tool and we will have some sort of a nice key wall right here. Now that Nicolet Terrace is done, let's focus on Pine Ridge. And this is our advanced building level control neighborhood where we zone things in and then we adjust the level of the buildings. So in Pine Ridge, I'm going to do that right off the bat. We're going to say that the minimum level here is 4, the maximum is 5, and I'll even have random spawn levels so that they spawn in at level 4 or 5. And then it's as simple as going through here and zoning things in. I am going to also place some buildings at the end of the cul-de-sac, so we'll just take whatever spawns in, we'll use picker, and place a couple of those at the end of the bulb. So I've zoned all of this in, and what you'll notice is that many of the buildings are smaller. The idea there was that if we use smaller buildings, hopefully they won't cut into the terrain so much. So they'll be level 4 and 5. They'll look really, really nice, but they'll be more modest in terms of size. I would assume that they'd still have super high values. I've also sprinkled in just a couple of commercial buildings. The idea being that you wouldn't have to go all the way down the hillside to get some groceries. Maybe there's a restaurant that people would come from far and wide to visit. I'm going to let this fill in for just a moment. And now that some of this is filled in, we can add in some buildings around our cul-de-sac bulbs. So this will be very, very simple. Just a matter of, well, I guess we'll want to get some power here first too. We're out of power. Oh, you know what? We're still grabbing all of our power from that one transformer that we placed. So let's add in a rural line. And that should do the trick for us. Now we should have a connection all the way across. Yeah, that's much better. Now I'll use picker and just grab some of these buildings and place them right over here. And now that I have these, I'm just going to grab this set, Control C them, and we'll paste them around some cul-de-sac bulbs. Now you might wonder why I placed the exact same building around all the cul-de-sacs, and that's really because I'm going to use the advanced building level control and just randomize these. So if we hit the randomize appearance, we just randomize these. So that's what we can do around the ends of these cul-de-sac bulbs. And for the most part, I like the way that this has turned out. It's very simple to do it this way, but you end up with a product that is pretty darn good. And honestly, because we use smaller buildings, things look all right through here. We don't have a bunch of terraforming craziness. I don't know that I love all of these buildings. We've got some fairly modern looking, weird vanilla buildings. And then we've got a couple of buildings like this when maybe I don't want the duplex look. Randomize, and now it looks pretty good. So that is a way that you can control these, and I think that that's exactly what we'll do. I'm going to spend just a moment randomizing some of these buildings. I'm a little happier with this. Is this the most efficient way to do this? Probably not, but it did do the trick. We have a nice neighborhood that is filled in here. Which brings us to our last neighborhood, and this is the one where we plop everything. This one is going to be probably the best looking neighborhood out of all of these. The way that we'll do that is we'll go into Find It, we'll go into Rico, Growable, we're going to have only custom assets. So we will filter this down to King Leno's assets. So we'll go with buildings that are at least 3 units wide. I think that's how we get our biggest buildings. There aren't any 4xs in this set. And then we're just going to randomize these through here. Editor fill here, and they say hindsight is 2020, and that's because it is. I'm not actually showing you the best way to do this. I think that the best way to do this would actually be to create a bunch of tags. The reason why is I have the exact same sorting I had in the video, and you'll see that there are level 2 and level 1 buildings in here. So if you wanted to create tags, you could click on this little tag icon right next to this. And I'm looking at a level 4 building. You click on that and we could say professor. And now I can give that professor tag to any buildings that I want within this tag list. That's as simple as clicking on the tag again and selecting professor and hitting plus. And now I'm creating a list that I could sort by. And you do have to refresh this after you create that list. And then your new tag list will show up, sort by that, and now I can randomize within this list. So this is the best way to do it. Don't just narrow it down by the asset creator because you'll get all the different levels. All right, back to the video. So what I want to do is something that's going to be a little bit interesting. I want to make different docks and piers out here. So that's always something that's challenging in a vanilla game, but I think we can do it. So I want to use the gravel path. We're going to force these to be elevated, and I will send this down here. Then I'm going to Control H this to the end. And the reason why we flattened this out earlier is so that we could do this. And you can see it looks pretty good. And now I'm going to copy this whole thing. There we go. We've got some docks, but what good are docks without some sort of boat at the dock? You might think we don't have any options for that, but we do as long as we have find it. So this time we'll filter this by sub building, and I want to search for boat. And as long as we have vanilla selected, we'll have these couple of options that show up without a picture. So what we'll do is we'll place these on land so we can see what we're looking at. And these smaller ones come from the Hotels and Retreats DLC. The larger one is actually from the Steamboat Museum. So we don't want that one, but these ones will do the trick for us. So now I'll add sub to the end of here, and now I should be able to just basically come through here and hit the random button and get a random boat within this menu. So now I'll just come along the side here and randomize the boats that we're placing. Now look what's happened here with my docks. For whatever reason, now we have a bit of this that's showing up as land down here. And even if I upgrade it, it's not getting fixed. So what I'm going to do is just delete this and redraw it in. I'm going to place this here, drop this in, and then use move it to lower this down. And then we should be okay. But while I'm at it, I should also come in and add in the rest of this. So I want to have a path going to these homes. We'll just add that in right away. This is easily one of the more finicky things I've done today, but I think the results speak for themselves. It looks like we have little docks here, and that's exactly what I wanted. I wish that we had some boats going around through here, but without mods, sort of move it and find it, I think that this is a pretty good solution, and I'm quite happy with it. The one thing that I think that we would expect to see here and in the other areas is a bit of landscaping. So let's do a bit of landscaping and detailing. Landscaping this time around should be fairly straightforward. I want to remove some of the landscaping along the coast here where, it's one of our more prominent areas. And then for the rest of it, just basically add in a bunch more. So here, let's add in a couple of trees. And that's about all I want to do here, not all that much. And then we will go into move it, select only trees within our marquee selection tool. And I want to find a fairly normal looking chunk of landscaping. The nice variety of trees will highlight that. Control C, and I'm going to really fill this area in. I want to put the contours on first so I can see what I need to cover up. And then I want to put the exact same line of trees kind of against this road. I want it to feel natural, so I'm going to fill this in like it's a forest that we've cut into to place this road. And now I want to focus most of our detailing in this area. So I want to add in a bunch of privacy fences. I feel like if you are in an area like this, you're likely looking for a ton of privacy. Now that we have all those fences in place, a whole ton of them, we're going to remove all the landscaping through here and place it by hand. And I've gone a little bit harder on landscaping than I expected to, but I am pretty pleased with the results. I tried to make every house have a little bit of a privacy screen on the front, so there are a couple of evergreens that would provide privacy year round. And then on the sides of each of the lots, I've added some bushes, just something to make it feel a little bit more lively. Obviously, I think that I could keep doing this all day and finding new things to adjust and make better. But from a quick landscaping job, I'm pretty pleased with how it's turned out. Every house has a little bit of detail. And truthfully, I think that this would be an excellent place to live. I think it'd be a really highly sought after place. There's one more thing I want to do, and that is take a look at this to see how we've done here. And we're in a pretty good spot with our hotel. The one thing that we're not seeing is office. Those did not fill in yet. We have no demand. I am going to increase the amount that we're making here, though. We can boost this up. In fact, I think with as much as we're making, we could probably max this out. I'll just leave it here for now. Once the offices come in, maybe I'll boost this up even higher. But for now, I think there's only one more thing to do, and that's take inventory of what we've done with a brief city tour. Now let's make some fixes based on your feedback. And we're going to start here at the park, where we had a number of suggestions. The first one that I'm going to take is from Kristen Malone and TB, and this one opens up land for the rest of the suggestions. So we're going to move the parking across the street. This might not seem obvious to you as a solution, but I actually really like it. A couple of things that this does is it will actually act as traffic calming as people are crossing the street, and it will deprioritize parking while also providing quick visual cues to anyone who does want to park here, how much parking is available. So I think this is a really great solution. The one challenge is we do have some terrain issues here, so that will limit the amount of parking that we can have. But truthfully, that's fine. We've got transit here, we've got bike lanes. Use other modes to get here if you can. So there's more to this suggestion, and that is also signalizing this. And I'm going to add one thing. I want to have a path here so that people could choose any one of these ways to get in. And then I'm going to signalize this twice. So we will add in a signal right here so that pedestrians could cross here. And then I'll add one here, which will be like a push button actuator. So if you were here at the parking lot, you could get in through this push button actuator. This will slow traffic down in this area. It'll be a lot less comfortable to speed through here, and I love the suggestion. And now we can get rid of this parking, even though there's a lot, we had way too much, so it's completely fine. And this opens up land for the suggestions that Nico H239 and External made. Nico recommends adding a gym and External recommends adding a pool, and those are excellent suggestions. I always forget about these because they're underneath the healthcare tab, but they definitely fit in here. And the sports hall and gymnasium has a parking lot, so that is a benefit as well if we want to maintain a bit of parking over here. And there we go. I've removed some of the landscaping behind here. My initial thought was, oh, maybe you could look over here and actually see the water, but there's this thick row of landscaping, so I guess that won't happen. But the thought was there, so there we go. There's one more thing I want to add in this area, and this is from Brody McKinnon, 1989, who suggests adding a playground, which I think is an excellent idea. This is becoming quite the complex, and you can imagine people coming here for a variety of reasons. Or if there's intramural sports, you could imagine that maybe people have their kids. I actually did this quite often. My mom played softball, and she would take me to the places where she was playing softball, and I would be able to go and play on the playground. So what an excellent suggestion. I pulled this back a little ways so that it feels a little bit more naturally placed. I added some benches and some pads, and this feels a lot better to me. And then there's one last thing I want to do here, and this was suggested by Sissy Pants 34 and Doggy Boy 6333, commercial buildings and bathrooms. And I think that those are excellent suggestions. So let's add these. So I grabbed these two eco buildings, so just a coffee shop and then a public market. I think those would fit really well here. And then for the restrooms, we're actually gonna go into the Railroads of Japan Content Creator Pack. We've got these public restrooms and they fit perfectly in a park. So I think that you could see something like this right here next to the basketball courts, and maybe again over here in between our pool, so you could change in the pool or have it available for the parents with the kids that are newly potty trained. So there they are. And then we'll have one more over here for folks right before they enter the ballparks here. So I think that that makes a ton of sense. Excellent suggestion, Sissy Pants and Doggy Boy. The next suggestion comes from Semper Mesus, who says that this pedestrian bridge, while it looks nice, is actually adding a ton of length on because of how high it is and the loops that we have here. And to make it more accessible and cheaper, why don't we just have a curve right in here? And that makes a ton of sense to me. It's funny, sometimes I can get tunnel vision, and I think this is a case of that. So what we're gonna do is stop this when we have a truck underneath it and lower this down. Let's see if we can get a semi underneath here, because that's really the big test. This looks like the height's pretty good, so I think we can roll with it. The one thing that would be a concern here is there are heavy truck routes, and I think that this bridge could potentially make that a problem. But we are not going to worry all that much about that. We'll take some liberties here and have fun. There we go. And you know what? I think that that was an absolutely wonderful suggestion. It looks a lot more reasonable. This would be a ton cheaper, and we've shortened up the distance that people are walking considerably. So absolutely great suggestion, and thanks so much for being a channel supporter. Really appreciate that. And then our final suggestion was from Nicholas Rojas, although I saw this a couple of times in the comments, that we should be using four-sided architecture right here. This is just too great of a view to have things like a trash can facing it. And I agree. This was an oversight, and we should absolutely resolve this. And there we go. What I've done here is grabbed a few assets from the shopping malls content creator pack and basically just rotated them around a little bit. Now, interestingly, these appear to be functioning. I do think it would be a bad idea not to go into the building spawn points and make sure that they're in a spot that works. Truthfully, for whatever reason, they're okay with this. But I think, there's what I'm talking about. We have one that's no good. So we'll fix just these. And I forgot that someone told me recently, you could just grab these and pull them wherever you want. I've been doing the whole spinny thing up here forever, and it's not the only way to do it. So you can grab these now, which is awesome. There we go. This should be fully functional. Four-sided architecture, kind of. So that's why I added this fence here to hide that door. I removed the garbage back here. And these are interesting buildings because oftentimes, if you're a planner requesting four-sided architecture, you'll get stuff like this where there's additional articulation. We have some more textures, but it's not real. And maybe I've seen this a bunch of times where you have a developer come up and they go, well, I'd love to put windows here, but this is our storage room. Or I'd love to put windows here, but here's where our mechanicals are, and that's why we can't. And it does happen. Now, we've got a trash can here. This is easy. Alt-B into Bob. We just remove it. And that removes it for all of them, but it's fine. Oh, there's also trash there. Much better. So now Philip can walk through that, no problem. So that was an excellent suggestion. Thank you so much for that. Boy, oh boy, we have accomplished a lot today, and I've had a lot of fun doing it. And I hope that you've enjoyed this as well. If you did, please hit the like button. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so. And I really want to thank you for joining me today. There's a million things you could have been doing, but you decided to hang out with me. I don't take that lightly. I appreciate your time, and I can't wait to see you in the next one. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.